Welcome back. You're watching World Talks, and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Right after his meetings in Paris, the freshly elected German Chancellor Friedrich Merz arrived in Warsaw for talks with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The two officials discussed the current security challenges for Europe, but the journey of the new chancellor did not start without obstacles, as it took 2 votes to elect him to be the leader of the ruling coalition. So how did the first trip to Poland turn out? What does this meeting actually mean, and what meaning does it carry? We will have this conversation with my next guest, Thomas O'Donnell, energy and geopolitical strategist at theglobalbarrel.com. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me again, Claudia.
A lot happening. So what do you think about this decision by Friedrich Merz to make his first visit, first to France on the same day, on the full day of him being in office, and then to Poland?
Well, I'd say for a German prime minister, it's very realpolitik. One of the top things on the agenda, obviously, is security, with a war going on in European territory for so long. And obviously, the 2 main players in the European Union are France and Poland. And of course, there's the UK, who is very supportive of the opposition to Russia. So it's a realpolitik thing. He has to have good relations with Poland and also with France to advance on this. And as we know, Germany's rather reluctant to be stepping forward in this. They're expected to do this, but that's not, for whatever party leads Germany, that's not what's happening. So
as let's take a look at the meeting in Paris first.
Yes.
How do you think that Merz's visit to Paris actually reflects his approach towards the Franco-German relationship, especially now that the new coalition is coming into power, and obviously the previous relationship has to be sort of reestablished?
Yes. Well, if I could just briefly review, with the previous chancellor, with Mr. Scholz, it didn't go so well. You know, what Macron was known for is constantly calling up Mr. Putin after the invasion and constantly trying to talk to him. And we know from what he would explain somewhat publicly is that he thought the only chance Europe had to be relevant in the world was versus what he saw as the 2 superpowers, as China and the United States, was blocking with the Russians, not any illusions that Russia is somehow democratic or something, or that they're not what they are, but only by blocking with them could they buy time, he said. He openly said this, Mr. Macron, could we buy time in Europe in order to reindustrialize and be competitive? Now, about the end of 2023, he realized he's embarrassing himself. Putin had no intentions of doing this, and he rather angrily changed. And Scholz became alarmed at this, and he was invited to Paris to discuss it, and they ended up having an open kind of more or less diplomatic shouting match at each other. No way will we send troops, but the French said maybe we have to send troops. So
there was definitely some sort of a conflict.
Yes. Now the new chancellor, I mean, he's got the SPD, which is Scholz's party, as his partner. And also his own party is reluctant to go that far. He will say things, maybe we'll supply Taurus missiles and so forth. But this idea of putting troops on the ground, say to guarantee a peace, he's very reluctant to do this. So I don't think there's a fundamental change. He will sound more open to security arrangements, but it's a very problematic matter in Germany.
We've seen what happened when the new chancellor was supposed to be elected. The first vote did not elect him. Then we saw a second one. This was a political earthquake, not only for the domestic issues and domestic politics of Germany, but also for the European Union as well. Do you think that Mr. Merz has what it takes in order to springboard Germany into action, considering what happened on the day of the voting?
Well, he's new, so we shall see. Okay, but I will tell you what people who know him far better than me, his own party, okay, why did this happen? He had 52% in the parliament, and that means members of his own party and the SPD apparently didn't vote for him in a sort of protest. Now, whether it was organized or not is not clear. There's all sorts of theories about this. But in any case, I can list about 3 or 4 things where people were quite upset with him for different reasons. One, in his partners, the SPD, especially the younger SPD, is upset with the more intense border protection and immigration issues, which is an issue here too. But also on other matters, he changed the CDU philosophy. He was saying that they would stick by the big black zero and not change the Constitution. But he changed the Constitution before he came into power. And he did this together with the Greens and with the SPD to get the votes before they left Parliament. And he had to give the Greens $100 billion towards new green infrastructure after critically criticizing their acts in the old government. So this undermined his support in his own party. And it was thought that in the negotiations, generally with the SPD, he gave in too easily, and a number of members of the party apparently resigned in protest. Where did they go? Probably the AFD, or it's not clear. So he has to overcome some mistakes he's already made and show strength. And he often changes his mind. He'll make some strong statement, I'll never work together with the AFD, or I will work together in some way with the AFD, and then the next day says, that isn't what I said. And so he has this problem in looking like a strong leader in Germany.
Only but a few days ago, I had Natalie Tocci from the Istituto Affari Internazionali, and she mentioned that it's incredibly important for the coalition to have a strong leader, because otherwise the coalition could potentially face some troubles. But let's jump into the Weimar Triangle under Merz's leadership, because those meetings with the new chancellor seem to be pointing in a direction of a reactivation of that triangle. What's your opinion on this, and where would this Weimar Triangle go from here?
Well, it's not a bad idea, yes, because after all, as I said, it's Poland, France, and Germany who have to take the leadership. The problem is, what is Germany ready and willing to do? And I do see Germany significantly increasing their military production, because they really do have to reindustrialize, and they have serious problems. The country's deindustrializing, and it's, you can't mince words about this. And much of this is their energy policy mess. And he doesn't seem to have clear ideas about how to resolve it. That's another issue. So I can see them contributing to the Weimar Triangle in security, in production. But as far as stepping forward on the ground, I think that's problematic. And reality is, it's problematic for Poland to talk about. Well, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters who's leading the country. This is not pro or con one party or one side or the other. Poland has 3 hostile borders that are all basically Russian, right? Belarus and the 2 others. If Poland led Macron came here and asked, will you come and make a commitment to put troops in Ukraine with me, as Starmer from the UK has agreed? And no. They felt they were put on the spot. But the reality is, if I understand where they're coming from, if Poland put troops in Ukraine, not as NATO, Putin might say, okay, well, not as NATO, I'm going to lob a few missiles at you. Then what do you do? So I understand their dilemma. They want to do this as part of NATO. But Macron, being a French nationalist, is like, no, I embarrassed myself talking to Putin. He undermined all our influence in Africa. He's making fools of us in Ukraine. Now I'm going to do this.
And he's not sticking to his word.
In what sense?
In what sense? Well, we've had ceasefire, the Easter ceasefire.
Putin, yes. But I'm saying Macron has this resolution.
No, I meant Vladimir Putin.
And that way I would say Macron, objectively, for his own French nationalist reasons, is leading in this aspect in Ukraine. And it's difficult for Poland or any of the Baltic countries to make these same commitments without NATO. And so here we come to the problem of Mr. Trump. Where does he stand on these matters?
Let's walk it back. You mentioned 3 hostile Russian borders.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Okay. Well, you got Belarus, right? And I'm sorry, did I say 3? I should say 2. I should say 2. Yes. What I want to say is, you've got the Russian forces going into Ukraine on the 3rd border. That's what I should say.
Didn't want to put your feet to the fire. No. Just wanted to clarify that for our
Americans
viewers.
And Eastern European geography, but yes.
Let's go to the next question, shall we? So we're looking at Germany, France, and Poland. What are the next steps for common security? What has to happen after this meeting that took place both in Paris and in Warsaw? Okay, so yes. Well, one thing, much of this is determined by what Trump decides with Putin. Trump, and this is a bit complicated, but I think it's much more clear than it was early on. Trump, he's got Zelensky now in agreement. Zelensky has agreed through coercion and charm and whatever. He's gotten Zelensky to agree, okay, if you can make a deal with Putin that we can live with, we'll go along with this. Now, the problem is, he's got to get a deal with Putin, and so far he's charming him. And we could talk about all the energy matters. He wants to offer him mineral deals. He wants to offer him many things. But it's appearing that, Putin is not doing it. So Trump probably is going to have to flip
and turn to coercion on Putin. And there's two main things that are being considered in the cabinet in the United States earlier on. One was to significantly cut off the ability to export oil. And this could be quite dramatic. And I wonder, why are the Saudis increasing their output of oil when it's just lowering the price and seems not to be in their interest? This is interesting. It could be preparing to do that. Number two, what they consider is really giving Ukraine some formidable weapons. If that happens, then Europe, I think, would be on board that he stands against him. But then when there is, and if there is a deal, that's when it'll be complicated for Europe. Do we accept this deal? And if we do, it's going to be up to us in Europe to enforce it on the ground in some way, together probably with NATO, but not directly there, NATO outside. It'll be a complicated balance. And there'll be difficult decisions, as I referred to for Poland earlier, or the Baltic states, or for France. How do we do this without risking our security, direct attacks on our countries?
Very shortly, because our time unfortunately is coming to an end.
Sure.
As you're looking at this meeting that took place in Warsaw, do you think it's only due to Poland being in this particular geopolitical place, or is it because there is Poland's evolving position when it comes to the world of diplomacy and politics?
No, that's obviously very important in the European Union. You just had the presidency, and I think you've done a great job, and Poland has a good reputation in this respect. But there's other problems in the EU that have to be jointly dealt with. I mean, seriously, if Germany is deindustrializing, and they're having difficulty adopting the policies that are needed to change it.
There's also economic stagnation.
Right, and that's going to, if Germany goes down, there's very little Poland can do to make up for it. This would be a real disaster for Poland, because it would pull down the whole East.
And Central and Eastern Europe.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, the whole Central and Eastern Europe. But there's other issues of migration that Germany has to deal with, and Poland also wants to deal with, no matter who's in power. So each one has to play to the home market or the home populace, and it looks like they're against each other. I think they could make, Merz could go farther in saying, I'm going to help you, Tusk, or whoever's in power, I'm going to help you, Tusk and Mr. Duda, at your border in some way. The EU hasn't helped you enough. He says this, but he could do some more demonstrative things to show that it's not against Poland per se.
Thank you so much, Thomas O'Donnell, energy and geopolitical strategist from the Global Barrel.
Thank you very much, Claudia.
Pleasure to have you, Thomas. Thank you. And so this would be all for now here on World Talks, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features, and we'll see you there.